you should know. I hope you guys weren't too disturbed, by the way, of that Professor Quirrell imitation. I am not an actress in that way. Don't come for me. I know that did not sound like him at all. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. In today's episode of My Tale, we're gonna talk about a really fun project that I just completed. It was a labor of love, let me tell you, but I am thrilled beyond surprised at myself and beyond a lot of things for what I was able to accomplish in 2 weeks. Also, common disclaimer I put in some of my videos here, I am a stay-at-home mom, a mompreneur. Every now and then you're gonna hear a crash, a bang, or a sound that I can't really just edit out. There is a little child running amok around my feet as we speak. So, many of you know there are tons of crochet books out there. There are tons of different styles of books, but I've always had it in my heart that I've wanted to do something fun and something new with my crochet journey this year, and one of those things came true because I was able to crochet a pattern for a book that came out just recently. This is the Harry Potter Amigurumi book. This is one of 2, I believe. I'll leave a link down below for where you can find this book. But guys, this was like the most incredible project. I have only, confession time, I've only ever published 1 crochet amigurumi pattern ever. That's it. I've made a bunch of amigurumi and I have tried my hand at it, but designing is another animal. And this was truly, I probably picked the hardest thing in the world to make. So without further ado, let me introduce you to my piece that was part of this Harry Potter book. It's not what you expect. Here he is. Now I am filming this video seriously like an hour after I've completed this. I took some B-roll, I took some photos of it. I cannot tell you how much fun it was working this up, but it was really difficult. Let's talk about a couple of things as to why this particular character was difficult. But first of all, if you're not understanding who this is, if you haven't seen the Harry Potter movies, if you've even just seen the first Harry Potter movie, there's a creature in the movie that was super impactful. It was part of Ron, Hermione, and Harry's first big win together as a trio of magical wizards, and that was when they defeated the mountain troll that got into Hogwarts and got into the girls' bathroom, and they went to go save Hermione, and they were able to do so much in their first moment as a trio that I believed that this character represents the true fun, whimsy, danger, and success of the Harry Potter movies in its entirety. This is truly a one-of-a-kind character. You kind of feel bad for him a little bit in the movie. I just was super inspired by this character. As you can see, a lot of shapes that represent this character are actually triangle shapes. So it was kind of difficult for me to figure out how I can manipulate the fabric of amigurumi to create more cone shapes as opposed to just circles and cylinders. It was really actually combining a triangle and a cylinder to make a lot of these different pieces. Probably the hardest part was actually figuring out the contouring of the belly. I even tried to put it in a belly button, you can see there, and trying to figure out actually the proportions of each limb, because I wanted the arms to be big, I wanted the legs to be big, and the belly to be big, and the head to be small. But figuring out how to do all of that at the same time was truly, truly difficult. I've spent a lot of time wasting a lot of yarn working on these pieces, and I'm gonna show you some of the early parts of this pattern. So let's get into that. All right, so the very first version that I came up with, I was using scrap yarn. This was the first sewn together piece that I had come up with. Pretty similar to the original one, and I know he's in all red. Very similar, almost twin-like, if you will, but I did adjust a lot when it came to the legs. I needed the legs to be thicker at the bottom, so you see that happening. I also, you can see that actually from the bottom here, the size difference between the 2 feet. That was a huge change. Also, how I sewed things on was very different, and where I sewed them on. As I made each model, I became more consistent and worked it out pretty well. And I wanted to work it in this scrap yarn before working it in the real yarn so that I didn't end up making mistakes that I was going to regret later and then not having enough yarn to complete the project. Hence why we have this red guy right here. I truly enjoyed seeing the first version of this come together, and I was really proud of myself. It also gave my hands a chance to really work on my tension because I don't make amigurumi all the time. My mouse ears that you see behind me are kind of like a version of amigurumi, if you want to think of it that way, but they're more of an accessory, and I didn't really have to worry too much of the stuffing in those because it's not stuffed very firmly, okay? These characters have to be stuffed firmly, and the stitches have to be even tighter than I'm usually used to. I mean, my finger is still sore from the one night I was truly working all these pieces together. So anyway, this was the first version of this guy. The biggest thing you could probably notice is the hands are a lot different. I struggled with the hands. I think all artists struggle with hands, whether you're drawing, sculpting, or crocheting or knitting. Hands are very strange, and I think that I definitely ran into that in the beginning, but I did come up with a good solution. My solution for that was that I ended up just making the hands the same on each piece, but because the arm is flipped from one side of the body to the other, it ended up just being fine, being the same, because it wasn't a realistic hand, it was really just kind of like a hand. Also, there were only 3 fingers and 1 thumb for this troll, so that made things a lot easier for me as a maker and a designer. Version 2 of this creature was almost the final version. The reason it didn't end up making the cut is because the color was wrong. Now, here's my story about this. I ended up getting this yarn from Hobbii. It was my first time ordering from Hobbii. I really enjoyed it, the process. It came quickly. I didn't even know it was coming from Denmark until I got like a notification that it was shipping from there, and I panicked for a second because I thought that it was going to arrive late, and it didn't. It arrived very quickly. It was a great shipping process, and I would totally order from them again. However, I didn't take enough time looking at my color options and looking at what I was trying to complete, which was a medium gray colored troll, and I ended up making this guy. This guy was really pretty much the final copy, but as you can see, if we hold him up to the final copy of the troll, definitely there is a huge difference. This is like how the color should be. This is definitely like he has been spending all his time in the sun and has gotten really dark, and that's okay. But if we're doing it close to the film, close to the movies version, you want to really get as close color-wise as you can, and this was not cutting it, but it definitely was cool. This was the version that I really dove into making these warts. Those are created by making French knots on the surface of the crochet fabric, and I really loved doing that process. I think I'm gonna start incorporating French knots in the future with other projects because it's a great way to add texture without actually having to make a bobble stitch or a popcorn stitch, and if you can stand sewing, then you're all good to go. So this was a really great, nearly finished copy. I also adjusted how I worked the nails. I don't know if my camera can zoom in on that here. So the nails were another thing. I didn't know if I wanted to make the nails with like a polymer clay, bake it, and then kind of glue them on, or if I wanted to try to find a way to crochet the nails. I did, in this version, get the nails and evolved that, but these were still needing to work some kinks out because the way I decided where to put them was strange. So I was glad to have another version to work on, which is the final one you saw, to really get that set in stone. But the feet, all the lengths of the arms and the feet and the legs and everything was perfect. One thing I did adjust with the final one, and my mom pointed this out, so Mom, if you're watching this video, thanks for doing that. My mom said, "What's he wearing, a diaper?" And I said, no. And she said, "Well, why is it so high on his stomach? It should be hanging down, hanging off. It's a loincloth." I said, okay, Harry Potter expert. But she was right. It was hanging it was on way too high on his belly. It ended up making him look less beer belly liked than I wanted to. So adjusting the placement of that to about there, which you can see I've definitely crudely sewed that on, really helped and made a huge difference. So I will say there was probably like a list of things that I learned in this process of designing amigurumi, but I'm gonna give a couple takeaways that really helped me from being a intermediate amigurumi designer to more of an advanced amigurumi designer, and actually someone that just makes amigurumi patterns. Number one was using stitch markers was a huge relief for me. There were times where I really was stuck on, I had to place the legs in such a specific place to give you kind of like this leaned back, like oafish look to the troll, and I didn't really know how to, without using those really long like chopstick pieces, I didn't know how to keep the leg in place while trying to sew it on at the same time. And I found that using stitch markers to connect certain points of the tops of the pieces together really helped me. So using stitch markers came in huge handy when I was trying to work out how to sew these pieces on, because this is a sew project. I know all of us are into the no sew, but this is truly a piece that needs to be sewn together. There's just too many details. Second thing that I had to learn was, for this particular piece, and especially this is for any designer that is trying to get into designing, or somebody that is really looking to create something based on a real thing, draw it out. Not everyone is an artist, I know that. Me drawing this piece out, and I'll leave the original drawing sketch here for you if you'd like to see that. Drawing it out really helped me know where I wanted the design to go towards. If I didn't draw it out, I would literally be trying to pull up a picture of the troll through Google every 5 minutes, and I would be really losing my mind. Also, drawing it out helped me understand each shape that I was trying to make and know that, okay, a third of the way down, it's gotta increase this much by twice as much as it started with. A fourth of the way down, it needs to have an indent here. Like, I was able to actually see the anatomy and the outlines of what the shapes were supposed to look like because I drew it out. So that was a huge thing that really helped me in this project. And the last thing that I learned, and I had to pick up my little guy because he was wanting to be in the camera and now he's shy, is that you're not gonna get it right on the first time. I always want things to go perfectly, if not the first time, the second time. But this time, the third time was the charm. And I really had to just let my brain accept that. If you accept that your first time is going to be imperfect, but it's going to be on its way to becoming perfect, that is gonna help you out so much more. Accepting early on in this design process that this was not gonna be perfect the first time was a huge game changer for me. So if you're suffering from perfectionism and you also want to design, or you are just trying to work on knowing how to manipulate a pattern, it's not gonna come out great the first time. If it does, God's be praised, you have been touched. You have been touched and anointed, touched by an angel, okay? Likelihood of you nailing it the very first time is probably not going to happen, and that's amazing. It's good. It's good to get no's so that you're closer to your yes in your final piece. Okay, last thing that I definitely wanted to show you, and it's a laugh moment, it's a haha LOL moment. I want to show you my very first attempt at creating one of the legs for the troll. So as you can see, this is the size of it. This guy measures in at about 12 inches or so. This was the size of the leg when I was first working it out with my scrap red yarn. And I attached the toes very differently this time around. Check out the size comparison. So imagine how big this guy would have been if he was actually built off of that. I mean, this would have been 2 feet tall, at least, if not, yeah, like 2 feet tall, because this is 12 inches, so that's exactly a foot tall. This would have been a 2 to 3 foot tall troll, and it would have been ghastly, and probably would have taken up a lot of yarn, Anyway guys, thank you for stopping in and hearing my tale of the things that I learned from making my mountain troll for the Harry Potter Amigurumi book. If you would like to check this out, it is linked in the description below. Please like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. I love to do all fun, yarny things, inspiring, letting you in on my inner thoughts as a maker and a designer. I love making magical things. This guy has to go off into the mail, so I had to film it today after completing it because I don't even know if I'm gonna get him back. Please go ahead and find this in the book and let me know what you think. It is an advanced level pattern. This has a lot of fun techniques, but it is not for beginners, so just keep that in mind. And on that note, have a creative day adding magic to your stitches in your own way, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye. Well, gotta start that again. Cut that out, Nicole, if you're not sure, if that's not true. You cannot play with the yarn on the wall. And the last thing that I learned,